There it is. Okay.
Can everybody hear me? Cool. I wasn't sure if we were going to have enough people for a quorum because so many people lost power. Looks like we are the lucky ones.
I didn't even know there was a power outage.
Oh my goodness, I've been receiving alerts on my phone all afternoon from Excel. And you saw the wind, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been outside lately, but I've seen the trees moving.
Yeah, there was a tree on Sherman, a little farther south, that like a 3-story tree, which is really sad.
Wow, the whole tree went down?
And on top of the house.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I'm registered with on Twitter with the city and Instagram. So whenever they post anything, I get it. So they posted a picture of that.
Wow.
Let's go ahead and get started. It looks like we got plenty of people. We're the lucky ones that have power.
Power.
I have power. I'm guessing a lot of people don't. I know. What was their latest? I wanted to say they said 80,000 people or without, here's the update. 8,000 people.
Wow.
So I get
Like-
text messages.
In Denver or in
They have a, there's some in Inglewood. They have a map that they give you
oh, okay.
that identifies the areas that don't have power. So I
Hey,
fully,
if any of you guys know a good fence guy, my back fence blew over today.
oh no.
Yeah. So
Well,
if you got a guy,
the good news is that's expensive enough that your house insurance will probably cover it. So
oh wow, no, it's just the back fence line. It's probably just a couple.
You know
$1,000.
what? Lou across the street built
I
that
know.
fence.
I'm gonna call him to shore it up, and I think I might have him put some cement footers in because he already did the side of my house before I lived there, and that thing holds up like,
Yes,
really well.
talk to Lou.
Okay, yeah,
because
he's a
he
fence
did most of
master.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sonia, you know everything.
okay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody and call this regular meeting of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee on this December 15th, 2021. So let's go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Chair Bowden,
present.
Vice Chair Green,
Present.
Member Dickerson,
Present.
Member Frangipane, Member Johnson,
Here,
Member Strom,
Present.
Member Watson,
Present.
Member Redovid. Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Item number 2 on the agenda is consideration of minutes from our meeting in November. Would someone please move to approve the minutes? Thank you, Colleen. Is there a second?
my second.
Thank you, Monica. Are there any discussions or corrections to the minutes as presented? I'm seeing the no, so let's go ahead and vote by a show of hands to approve the minutes as written. Those in favor, looks like that's unanimous. Thank you very much. The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. Maureen, do we have any attendees?
No, we do not.
All right. Moving forward. Next on the agenda is I'd like to recognize Code Manager Dave Lewis to talk about any code enforcement significant events or updates.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. First off, I overheard some of you speaking about the current weather events. The city has been extremely busy, including code enforcement today. We've had multiple trees, power lines, fencing that has blown down, animals that have been out and about that we've needed to reunite. So we've really been trying to support the police department as a whole, providing traffic support where we needed to close down streets temporarily, as well as making sure that families are reunited with their pets. So we had a full team here today, and it's a good thing because we've been busy since around 9 o'clock this morning. And this all happened on a major trash day. So trash is blowing around the neighborhoods, trash cans have fallen over. It really is going to take some time to clean up and to assess the damages that have happened in the city. Fortunately, we've had no loss of life. I'm very thankful for that, and only a few displaced families, which I'm thankful. It could have been much worse. Just a few quick updates before I go over statistics. As you all know, we're under some specific mandates here within Arapahoe County, and this includes the city of Inglewood. Code enforcement is continuing to be that conduit to refer any types of complaints to the Tri-County Health Department. We are continuing to take the stance of education. We do not have in this latest mandate, the city has no enforcement authority other than to provide education. The enforcement is completely civil at this point, and with some particular businesses, their licensing could be in jeopardy, whether it's a liquor license or other types of state regulated license or tri-county health, correct me, tri-county health licensing. But as of right now, we are seeing an overwhelming voluntary compliance. We're seeing a few spot situations here and there, but overwhelming. I think the community, we're tired of this. I mean, we're all tired. We all have COVID fatigue, and we're all doing the best that we can. We're really trying to be empathetic and polite and professional when working with businesses. Body cameras, as you all know, we've been up and running for a little over a month. I can report that it is a very successful program. We are being able to utilize these not only for cases and for testimony within court, but these are public records should they be needed for particular reasons and meet certain criteria. So we're quite happy that we have them. It really demonstrates the level of training and professionalism that our code enforcement officers receive, especially when dealing with people who may not have had any education in the past about code enforcement. At times, you all know it can be a bit stressful. People really do take pride in their homes and their animals, and it's very difficult to receive direction from a government agency. And so it highlights how professional we are in working with those individuals, not just from the standpoint of providing education, but making sure we do follow up when necessary, especially with certain victims of crimes that we experience. So I couldn't be happier with that program. Evictions have started back up again within the city of Inglewood, which has impacted the code enforcement division. The sheriff's office is doing approximately 50 evictions per day within Arapahoe County. That has impacted citizens here in Inglewood. Inglewood is doing everything that they can to connect people with resources before this takes place, as well as the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office. We don't want to ever see somebody lose a place to live, especially currently in current climates. There are a multitude of programs to try and keep that from happening, and so we continue to try and provide those resources when necessary. And then next would be statistics. And I wanted to see if there were any specific questions. I did combine because I was late with October. You'll see I'm going to be doing the year to date. So you'll see October and November in that report that we sent you. And I'm not seeing any unusual trends with the statistics. You will notice that in October, we did have some significant numbers with abatements, and that is just the follow-up and the completion of the season's work. Most of the abatements, like I said previously, had been done for property conditions that had dumping, an overwhelming amount of debris, other items that may have been on the properties. And towards the beginning of October, we still, because we were in the growing season and didn't have snow yet, we did do some grass and overgrowth and weed abatements within the city. Anything I can provide insight on for this team?
What does park violations refer to?
Any and all park rules violations. Since we brought on the park ranger, we needed a way to capture those violations. And so that could be anything from somebody smoking in a park to perhaps burning on a no burn day. So we had several days that we did not have or allow for any kind of grilling within the parks, and we bagged them. So it could be those violations. It could be animals that may be aggressive towards wildlife or wildlife issues. We're really trying to capture most of that stuff within the park rules violation. And there's a whole long list of them. I probably should send that to the body to be distributed because there are a host of them, from what you can do at Centennial Park on the lake to up to and including the type of leash or how long the length of your leash must be for utilizing a park. So those are the violations that would be included in that.
Maureen, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to let the committee members know that today there were employee recognition awards. And since Dave isn't going to say anything, I'm going to. Dave Lewis won an award for leadership, which he absolutely deserves. And I just wanted to congratulate him and let the committee know.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Dave.
Thanks, Maureen. No, I was not going to bring that up, but thank you. Code enforcement was also nominated for award for outstanding team contribution, and that stemmed from a lot of our work with communications and Walter Wednesdays and getting a lot of really changing and flipping the conversation about how and this body specifically too, changing the conversation where people understand and recognize the importance of code enforcement, the code enforcement and park ranger, and how we contribute to the community in a positive way, and the professional steps that we continue to take towards our profession. So you all deserve a big thank you because you are a part of that, and your articles and your word of mouth are really spreading, and I couldn't be more happier with the outcome of the way code enforcement is progressing. So thank you.
I think that's wonderful that you were recognized for that, Dave, and your leadership on this team has been duly noted, especially with all the progress we've been making. So thank you and congratulations at the same time. Okay, Colleen, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You mentioned something about the crime. What crimes do you actually deal with?
I guess, did I say the word crime?
Yeah, you said that there was an uptick of crime in Inglewood, and that something about your professionalism in dealing with this.
So maybe I was mistaken in utilizing that. I think it's also important to understand when it comes to collaborative work with the police department, the code enforcement division is the first line defense in keeping larger crimes from occurring within the city of Inglewood. It's a national statistic studied science that when you utilize the broken windows theory, that if you have an increase in code enforcement violations, it sometimes can attract other more serious crimes, or it could be a nexus for other crimes. And so we really do evaluate those hotspot maps. We work closely with the impact team, and we receive referrals. We do have a large nuisance abatement team, a meeting that involves all departments to the city of Inglewood, where we identify properties that have multiple violations that span multiple departments. And so we try to deploy our resources or our district code officer to really focus on those areas that may have increased criminal activities.
Oh, thank you very much. My second question is, you said the Code Enforcement Division got nominated for 4 awards. Who's the nominating organization, and who's going to award those awards?
For an award, not 4 awards, for an award. And this is a peer recognized city award. And it was a nomination.
Okay. Now, my final question is that I've been hearing from several people, mostly Inglewood Unleashed, that there were 179 park violations or Jason Park, dog park violations. but nobody's ever been able to find out what those were. And apparently that was reported to City Council. I wasn't party to that. I didn't know anything about it, but it came up again in a conversation. And I'm just wondering if you have, if you were able to provide that information to council, can you provide it to us specifically?
I am not in a position to have a conversation that's already been rehashed with City Council, and City Council's already made those decisions. That information was provided in the council request. You're happy to look at the council request regarding enforcement. All of that information was captured under a council request that Councilmember Wink made and was made available to all of council.
Oh, thank you very much.
Further questions for Code Manager Lewis?
Yeah, my hand's been up.
Oh,
Oh, it
Sorry.
blends in back there.
it does kind of blend in. Sorry about that, Carson.
No worries. Congratulations, Code Manager Lewis. I'm glad we have your leadership in the city. You deserve that. I have a few questions. One was back on the body cams. So doesn't the state rules make it so that the recordings automatically become available or something like that? Or how does that work if someone wants to view a recording of a body cam?
So the state law does not apply to the Code Enforcement Division because we are not post-certified peace officers. So the rules regarding officers are different than those that would be filed under the Criminal Justice Records Reporting Act.
Okay. Thank you. And so if someone did want to view a code enforcement body cam recording, would it be like a CORA request or how would it work?
So code enforcement cases do not fall under CORA. They do fall under Criminal Justice Records Reporting. Any citizen can come and request a copy of a police report from the Code Enforcement Department by coming to the police department or going online to submit that request. There is a fee for that.
And then so to get the report would be the same thing as requesting for the video?
Yes, and I'm not sure of the cost associated with the video, but somebody could request that information.
Okay, thank
There
you.
are certain, just want to point out, there are certain exceptions. So like if it involves, if we happen to respond to a case that has criminal activity that might involve a minor or domestic violence or some type of medical condition, those are usually excluded. So if we were to enter a home where someone may be incapacitated or may have passed away, some of those videos may not, that's an example, may not be available to the public.
Okay, thank you. On the statistics, I think you've answered this before, but it's not in my head very clear. Do you always only tick a single category? Or if something apply like an animal violation in a park, would that only tick the park one and not the relevant animal one, or would it tick both of them?
This primarily captures the most severe or the primary case that we would open under that report. So for example, if we were to go to a home and the most serious issue at that time was a dog bite, that would be categorized as a dog bite, but then there's multiple extra charges we can add. The statistic is only captured under the primary case. So they could have outdoor storage, grass and weeds, trash. They could have an RV parked on the street. There could be a multiple list of things, but the statistics only captured under that primary case.
Oh, interesting. So if you went to a home to deal with a dog bite, but then you identified other violations, those would all be under the dog bite. It wouldn't be separate recordings of the other violations that you identify. Or
we can't distinguish between a case because it's just like a police case. So it's per incident. So I'll use the extreme example of a police case. You go to a shoplifting, you see somebody that's been shoplifting, then you get into a foot pursuit, they carjack someone, then they go down the street and they crash. All of that's captured into one primary report, but the statistic is reported from the primary major violation because that's the way the case would be filed.
Is it very often that there would be multiple categories potentially reported under a single one?
We could potentially run into situations. We run into this a lot where we may run into somebody that has been reported for barking dog. It turns out that they have now 6 animals. They may be living in conditions that would be considered cruelty and neglect. So we would take the most severe of that, which would be the cruelty and neglect, and categorize that under that because it's the higher of the categories.
Okay. And then I'm curious about the procedure that and like what the rules are around barking dogs. Can you give us like a high level of how that works? Someone reports a barking dog. When is that a problem? Is there a decibel limit? Is there a time limit? What is the procedure for dealing with those type of reports?
So when dealing with a habitual dog complaint, we look at the totality of the circumstances. The way that the ordinance is written, no matter who complains, will always issue some type of an educational information or try to meet with the owner occupant to try to find out what the cause of that concern is. The way that it's defined in ordinance is neighborhood. And so my observations or the observations of a police officer do not count as the neighborhood. So we can't write a violation solely based on an observation. We have to have 2 or more separate residents complain and be willing to testify in court because it's the way that it's been written constitutes a nuisance of the neighborhood. It's very complicated. The city manager has directed the city attorney's office to evaluate that. And we're looking to make a change that may come before council directly, but it would involve only one complainant, but they would need to be able to, 1, testify how the nuisance is, how it impacts them, and provide additional proof such as a video recording, ring recording, or something to that effect, coupled with our observations. That way, we're not running into this concern that we have now where we may only have one neighbor complaining about the nuisance, but nobody else wants to cooperate. And that's kind of where we are right now is we run into that frequently where one neighbor gets frustrated, but the others don't want to file a complaint or be a part of a complaint. So that's
Sure.
something that city manager's office and code enforcement have been working with the city attorney's office on.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that was a currently potentially updated thing, but I'm aware of a situation where a single person could be the one who's affected. So that does make sense. Thank you. And then I have one more question. I had a neighbor ask me about the rules and how they're enforced around trash and recycling bins and where they're kept, etc. What are the rules that are being enforced around that?
So trash bins cannot be put on the front street side of your property until 24 hours prior to or after your trash service. We are running into some concerns regarding alleyway pickup versus street side pickup where that has been refused by trash hauling services. So a lot of the front of properties are really struggling with where to store their trash. And so we're really trying to make recommendations that they should store those on the side of their house or some type of a gate where they can go in and out. And so we are running into some educational opportunities regarding the storage of trash bins. We're hoping that some type of a resolution or conclusion to the single hauler trash service comes up, because I do realize that there's quite a few things that are in that RFP and the conditions that do require going back to alley side the way the city was designed versus street side only. And this is a very heated conversation. I'm sure some of you have actually participated in those conversations, and it's been set before council. So I'm not sure of what the next steps are when that's being brought forward.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually the chair of the citizen committee for that. And I do have an update. I'll share at the end of our meeting.
Yay.
Okay, that was all my questions. Thank you very much, Code Manager Lewis.
Thanks.
Further questions from the committee?
I think Robert has his hand up.
Robert.
Hi. My quick question is, this is back to what Carson was talking about with the multiple violations in a single stop or incident. So you only categorize it as the major event or the largest event? If there's 3 or 4 events, they don't get categorized in any way that can be researched later to count the number of type or different types of incidents?
We are not doing that. We'd have to open up a separate case for each violation. Typically, we run into that concern, and that's a great question. How do we capture some of those? That's probably a more advanced question that I would need to pose to IT. We are going through some upgrades to the RMS system in January. And so that would be something that I would bring forward to ask is how can we better capture multiple violations rather than just a single incident? Trackit had the same issues, the old system where we can only capture one case. And I think that also comes down to the way that we would need to move forward with enforcement and the judicial portion, because everything has to be captured in one case and presented to the court in one case, because then we run into issues regarding some constitutional law and multiple cases over multiple days could potentially jeopardize the case.
I agree with that part. I was just wondering, just for tracking purposes, if there was a way to do it. Just because it seems like if you get somebody for an RV out front of their house and they have, you know, a lawn with the problem.
So that's also a great question. Parking, we have to capture separately.
Okay.
So a parking violation would be completely separate than what would be on the property. So that would be 2 different cases because the ticket itself is a summons and gets generated separately. So that's one statistic that is already pulled out separately, but that's a good point.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Further questions for Code Manager Lewis? Seeing none, then we will proceed to our next topic, which is an update from our City Council liaison, Rita Russell.
Thank you very much. First of all, I too would like to congratulate Code Supervisor Lewis or Code Manager on your award. And I do appreciate Code's work and also the work of this committee. The last council meeting on Monday night was the last council meeting for the year. We will resume city council meetings on January 4th. And actually we will be back in council chambers on January 4th. We have not been there in probably almost 2 years. I think in March when we quit meeting, and then even when we came back to City Hall, they're updating some of the equipment in council chambers, but that will be done, hopefully. And I wanted to bring up Tri-County Health because Tri-County Health is going to be disbanded on December 31st of this year. State law requires that all counties must have a health department. And so the county commissioners right now are working on developing a health department for the county itself. And so we don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we have been assured that we will have one because it's required by state law. But Tri-County Health is going away. I think that's all that I have. Oh, Board and Commission interviews will be January 10th and 11th. So anyway, that is my update, unless you all have some questions.
I had a question. Rita, why is Tri-County Health going away? I mean, I know Douglas County opted out because they were frustrated with the decisions and the mandates that were coming out, but I wasn't aware that Arapahoe and Adams County had the same concerns. Was it just because one?
Well, really, I believe that Douglas County withdrawing put financial pressure on the system, because Douglas County is a very big county and that's a lot of money. And then in October, Adams County withdrew also. So that left Arapahoe County by themselves. So it really, it perhaps Douglas County precipitated the whole thing. So that's basically, I think, why.
Thank you. Colleen, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused because I thought Douglas County said that they were still under contract and paid to Tri-County Health for another year.
Yeah.
You know, we have not been updated on that, so I don't really know what's going to happen. I remember hearing that also, but we have gotten an email. So, I mean, it could be that there may be an interim position where, I don't know, perhaps Code Manager Lewis knows the answer to that question.
Regarding the finances, it becomes very confusing. And without getting into too many political weeds, because each county has its own set of government and their own elected officials, and they do what's best for their cities and their counties. I'm going to look at this, and this is the way I'm going to, because code enforcement works very closely with Tri-County. Let's take out the COVID component. We work very closely on a number of things. And so this is a great opportunity for the citizens of Arapahoe County and Inglewood to have a voice in what they want to see from their health department. They are responsible with so many things under state and local ordinances. Not only are they responsible for the food safety, they're responsible for restaurants, food handling, other vaccination programs, secession programs, smoking reduction programs, childhood immunizations, education, communicable diseases, specifically regarding animals. So I'm looking at this as a win-win. Yes, it's sad that this long-standing historical program is ended, but I'm looking at it from the standpoint is Arapahoe County and the citizens of Inglewood are going to get the services that they deserve in a more focused, more clear, more concise manner that our citizens request and our elected officials are going to hold them accountable for. So I think this is going to be very positive.
And actually, I agree with Code Manager Lewis that I think it is good for really the county and each individual municipality, including Inglewood. I am aware that there are a lot of things that we need a health department for. So anyway, I think moving forward, it's going to be fine. And the financial situation, they'll work that all out, because there's contracts and stuff people enter into. So I'm sure that's all governed by that. So thank you.
I read the press release and it said that the contracts would continue through December of 2022, and that's when everything would end, but they would need that year, a period of time to transition away from Tri-County Health.
So Julie, did the press release say December 2022?
Mm-hmm.
So what I read what I read, really, I guess the end of this year is part of what's happening, but the contracts go on, right? Is that okay? Thank you.
Robert, you had your hand raised.
Yes, but you answered the question. It was about the contracts and the timing, because the end of this year, obviously, would mean a couple more weeks and there's
Right.
nothing to replace it. So
Right.
Further questions for Rita Russell? Seeing none, then we will move forward to communications topics. So recognizing Monica as chair of the subcommittee on communications.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Robert, it's nice to hear you chime in tonight. And Manager Lewis, congratulations. You guys deserve recognition for all the good work and thankless work that you do. So thank you. Okay, so here's what I have. In the next magazine, I talked with Vanessa and she's going to get articles put in about mitigating weeds before they get out of hand per Manager Lewis's recommendation. And also we're going to hit home on the Emerald Ash Borer again and just start up that whole thing that we did last year. So that's just kind of its own thing now. They take care of it. And then I spoke with Dave Lee today about your questions regarding our Tree City status. And I'll just tell you everything he told me, and then you can ask questions if you have any. First of all, our most current application for Tree City status went in October, and the state forester says it is okay. And if the state forester says it's okay, it's pretty much a go. Julie shared with me an email that Dave Lee had communicated prior about the first requirement to be a tree city, which is having a entity that could be a controlling board or city arborist. And we do satisfy that criteria according to the state forester. And that entity is the Parks and Recreation Committee, who is happy to do that and will continue to do that. And they have an arborist on that controlling body. So all of that satisfies the first criteria. And as for the rest of the criteria, Dave said that the state forester has approved all of our submissions to fill those criteria, so they're okay. So we will be a tree city next year. We have been a tree city for 36 years, and he saw no reason that we would not be able to continue to be a tree city. I asked him about the Arbor Day program and its possible expansion. He gave me some background and said that it is in the past has been, well, and is really something that it's not a money maker for the city. What they're doing is giving residents the opportunity to buy trees at a substantially lower cost. Most of the trees that are coming in are around $100, and they're selling them for $30 each. This year they did something different, which is probably why they did two things differently, which is probably why some people weren't able to get a tree. In the past, you didn't have to order or pay for the tree prior, I guess. And this year they ordered less trees because they had found themselves with surplus in years past. So it was a combination of them ordering less trees because they had a surplus and creating this reservation system that you had to go online and prepay. So it was more efficient, but people got closed out. He is in favor of expanding. However, the budget has been set for next year. So no additional funds will go into it this coming year. However, there's some other good news, which is that hopefully in the next year, an assistant city forester will be hired, and that person will be tasked with securing additional grant monies and expanding programs to support EAB mitigation, as well as that Arbor Day program, in addition to the other jobs that a city forester would do. The final question that you asked was, does the Parks and Recreation Committee have funds set aside to assist residents with vouchers for, let me look at this, to safely dispose of trees or treat trees or any other programs to help people or replace trees. So he responded, yes, they have a $30,000 set aside for a voucher program to do just that. I'm just going to read this email to you. He says he also wanted to expand on the Arbor Day tree sale. In past years, we have been left with a good number of unsold trees. So last year they went with a lesser number of trees and started with the reservation system. Okay, I already told you this. Anyways, he's going to ask the staff to increase the number of trees for sale, and hopefully that will give everyone a chance to get a tree. So I guess long story short, money has been set aside. Everyone agrees that expanding that Arbor Day tree program is a good idea. And there will apparently, hopefully, be a new employee soon that will help with all of that, in addition to securing funds through grants and programs like that. So that's what I have.
Colleen, you have your hand raised?
I actually have started looking into all the Tree City, all the other jurisdictions that are infested with EAB and their tree programs. And oops, I'm knocking things over here. Boulder has a rather extensive program, and they just recently got the Tree City of the World designation, which means that they're at the top, and there are very few that have that designation. And it requires, let's see, standards. Let's see, standard 1 is established responsibility. And it can be just a staff member, a city department, or a group of citizens. Standard 2, they set the rules. The city has to place a law or an official policy that governs the management of forest and trees. 3, know what you have. The city has to have an updated inventory or assessment of the local tree resource, so that an effective long-term plan for planting, care, and removal of city trees can be established. Standard 4 is allocate the resources, has a dedicated annual budget for routine implementation of the tree management plan. Standard 5, celebrate the achievements, an annual celebration. Boulder actually has a forestry department, and it has a budget specifically in the forestry department of over $590,000. And they have a 60-page, for a total of $752,000, because other departments also have a budget for trees. They have a very extensive Arbor Day Foundation plan, and they also partner with Colorado Tree Coalition for grants and other things to assist citizens in planting. And I want to know if we have done any of that, because there are several organizations both state and independent that cooperate with the Arbor Day Foundation to plant trees. And they planted approximately 1,000 trees a year since 2013. So
Colleen,
But
is that
there
on
are-
public? Is that on public property?
what? It's both private and public. In fact, Boulder has a city a city right-of-way street tree program where a citizen can request, I want a street tree in my right-of-way. And the city comes out and examines the location, determines what tree would thrive there, whether the location is valid or not. And the only thing they ask this citizen to do, the homeowner to do, is keep it watered and mulched. The city is responsible for all street trees, all right-of-way trees. They don't make the citizen responsible for any of it. The only thing they have to do is if they request a street tree, the city will plant it, pay for it. You just have to water it and mulch it. And it's a big tree. You know, it's still a sapling, but it's already either 5 gallons or 15 gallons. And that's the case with their Arbor Day Foundation too. They give away thousands of trees a year.
Okay.
But they also they subsidize the Arbor Day Foundation. And that's why I suggested that we maybe partner with some of the tree suppliers, because they might be willing to sell in, wholesale bulk to the city at a much lower cost than the $100 for a 15-gallon tree. And you're saying that that's what the city is paying for it, but then they're selling it for $30. It was $50 last year. I don't know where they got the $30 because they wanted $50 from me, but I didn't have a chance to even buy it at $50
Yeah,
because they had so few trees.
Mm.
But it's a big deal in Boulder. It's a very big deal in Arvada. They got the Gold Leaf Award because they have expanded their program.
Okay. So I will go back with that question to Dave Lee, and I will also approach the Parks and Rec Commission. They're not in session this month, but I'd be happy to ask them about that. And it sounds like maybe that could be something Parks and Rec can look into, kind of comparing and contrasting what Arvada and Boulder are doing. I think they're both a little bit bigger cities than we are, but I'm sure.
Yeah, they are, and they've got more trees, but they're working really hard. But they also don't prohibit any trees. I can't find anybody that has a prohibition against trees. They don't. Boulder also doesn't recommend or encourage pesticides for emerald ash borer because they think it's environmentally unsound and that it will affect too much. Poison the ground. It'll poison groundwater, whatever. So they don't encourage it, but they don't prevent it either. But they've got a big push of diversity, and they don't hold citizens responsible for right-of-way.
Okay.
But I'm more concerned about the grants that are available and why we haven't applied for any of them. And both Arvada and Boulder, and I haven't gone any farther than that because they're the ones most affected right now. And I'm going to move in, look at Longmont and Westminster also. But they, have a real big push, and they've been expanding on their programs, their Arbor Day programs. And I don't see why we can't.
Sure. And I did not specifically ask Dave Lee if we have received any grants. So I can, we just were talking kind of into the future. But I'm happy to revisit your questions. And it really, I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but the Parks and Rec Committee, since they are that governing board, I think this is a great topic for them to tackle and get back to us on, because we've got our own fish to fry over here. We're working on the tree and shrub code, and they're a great committee, and I know they care about this topic as well. And there's some pretty diligent people on that committee. So if everybody's okay with that, I'll just take these follow-up questions and hit back with Dave Lee and that Parks and Rec Committee.
And just so, Colleen, I think you've been doing your research. That's why you're so knowledgeable. So it's interesting to learn about those programs. Those programs you and Carson are compiling into a single document for City Council as they requested. Is that how that all came about?
Well, I guess we're going to, but I know Carson was busy, and I just got started on it and didn't get back to Carson with any of it. But I started by hand because I don't have Word, so I don't have Excel, sort of a matrix. And I included, do they subsidize? Nobody subsidizes except for giving away trees, which Boulder does. And I believe Arvada does too, but they're not as transparent in what they're doing, but they've had some interesting videos, which I'd recommend people, if they're interested in what some cities are doing, looking at the videos that Arvada has produced in their efforts to plant public trees and provide for citizens. But the subsidies, nobody's really doing that except for giving away free trees and subsidizing the cost of larger trees. I've got subsidy, whether they prohibit trees, who's responsible for right of way, education, pesticides, their tree city status, and both Arvada and Boulder go above and beyond this basic, barely anything tree city USA. It's 36 years, we haven't raised the budget of $2. So it's worth not the $2 it was worth in the 36 years ago, but it's like worth about 25 cents right now. But anyway, also, do they have a urban forestry department? What's the budget for trees? How many ash trees do they have? How many are they trying to save? How many trees are they planting to try to overcome? Do they have a management plan? Boulder has a 66-page one. It's pretty elaborate. Who pays for street trees? And that's about it. I don't think we need to go any further than that, but I would think that all of that would be important in a matrix. Let the city know what we need to do.
So, Monica, I had a question. One of the reasons why we wanted to talk to Dave was that City Council had requested us to provide what the tree city standards were. And we were trying to, preempt the secondary question, which is, do we meet the criteria for the tree city standards? And Dave has answered the question, yes. Was he aware that City Council had asked for a document on Tree City?
I let him know that this was for the City Council information session, and that we needed to make sure that we fit all the criteria. So, I mean, if you want me to go back and get details on the other three standards.
No, I think, I just, when you see the standards, and the secondary question is, do we meet those standards? And he's saying we do, but, it's hard to tell.
Well, he's saying that the state forester has said that we meet the criteria.
Okay.
And that's who I guess is the arbiter of this.
So
So
when we
rather than, I just took his word for that, since he's an arborist.
So I think the call to action here is that when we submit the documents to Rita to present to City Council, that we include him on that communication so he's aware of what we're providing City Council, and he can be prepared if any questions
Yes.
come. Cool.
Yes, and I can follow up with him.
Okay. And did he say how they were going to be communicating the voucher program for removal and disposal of infested trees?
No, he did not.
That's pretty cool that he've already identified that.
Yeah, well, it's came up quite a bit. I'd appreciate, Colleen, if you could email me your list of questions that you just read off to me, because
Okay.
I'm happy to forward them. And yeah, but if you need more detail for your report for the city, I'm happy to get it.
Colleen?
One other, I'm going to send you the email, but one of my questions is, what about, I didn't know the Parks and Recs had a budget. The committee had a budget. So are you sure? Because your enabling legislation doesn't say anything about trees. It just says recreation. And, that's all there is that you give advice on recreational opportunities. And there's no budget listed, and we don't have a budget. And I don't know of any commission that does have a budget. But
I wasn't through the committee. I believe it's through the departments. The Park Service has a budget, right?
Yes.
The open space, whatever Dave manages, has a budget. And so just like this body, we are advisory, but we advise on where to allocate funds at sometimes. So that's come up in all of our discussions in our various committees, and that's how the departments have reacted or responded to those concerns. So yeah, it's not coming from the Parks and Recreation Committee. So
okay, well, I misunderstood you then.
yeah, I'm sorry. And I don't know what all the what different divisions or specific budgets those monies come from. All I know is that Dave Lee seems to know what all those figures are, and I'm happy to find out what buckets those things are coming from, if it helps give us a clearer picture. So yeah.
But it sounds like that actually the open space manager department, since it's titled by an arborist, arborist holds that title, and there's going to be another arborist on board, that they're actually the responsible department, not Parks and Recs. So I would say that would qualify us, but
Sure.
but not the Parks and Recs Commission would qualify us, because you don't really have any authority over, because you're just an advisory committee. A tree board actually would have authority and a budget, but the open space manager is the one that actually has the authority, and he has set aside out of his budget $30,000 for a voucher program.
That's sure
Which-
what it sounds like.
What?
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. So that's what I think is happening, and I would be satisfied with that, but not with claiming that the Parks and Recs was a tree board, because your enabling legislation doesn't give you that authority over any money. So, but anyway, beside that, I'm satisfied, but I would just like to at least equal, grow the department or grow the Tree City designation to the point where we could also get a gold leaf award, because right now it's not working to enhance our tree canopy.
Okay.
And anyway, that's all I have. I'll send you something.
Okay, Carson, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I was just going to address your question. I have not worked on it yet. I traveled a lot since our last meeting, but I definitely planned on coordinating with Member Dickerson, and I'm glad you've already done so much research. Thanks. And I'll work with her to turn it into the matrix, because we set the deadline of the February meeting. I've definitely
That's
kept
correct.
that in mind, and I'll stay on top of that. And thanks, Member Johnson, for all this info. And I know it's kind of been addressed in all of this discussion, but unless there was different communication between Dave Lee and that state forester than the email that I saw previously, that was only about criteria 1. I felt like criteria 1 was definitely covered since they were the ruler and they said it was good, but I haven't seen any information or heard any details about how Inglewood qualifies for the budget part, and definitely curious, how that, where that qualification, how we qualify for that. And it's not that I've dug into the city budget to know how much is designated to cover that one criteria that says a per capita amount of the city budget needs to go to trees. But I mean, if we're going by the letter of the standards, that is one of the standards, is related to a per capita amount of budget going to that. So I don't know if your conversation addressed that one of the standards with him, or if there's been different communication between him and the ruling body that I don't know about. But that was the one that, to me, still, I haven't seen information that addresses it.
I remember you asking that at the last meeting. I will get back with Dave and get a specific answer.
Cool. I'm sure it's probably covered, and he designates a portion of the budget to qualify that, but it would be nice to know that, so that since we are reporting to city council about it, so we can have those details included.
I'll have a written dialogue with him going forward, and I will forward you the answers to these questions so you can put them in your report that you're giving to the city.
Cool.
So
Thank you very
any-
much, Member Johnson.
Sure, just be as specific as you guys want. Please put them in writing though, because I'm writing down what you're saying right now, but I just want to make sure I don't come back.
Yeah, I'll
and
send you
say
an
no.
email with the standard that I pulled from the Tree City site and the one
Yeah.
that I was wondering about.
Yeah. And all of Colleen's questions, and then anybody else, just yeah, it just helps me, because this is not something I'm well versed in. I'm just getting started on this. So
Another option is, maybe in January or February, when we conclude all of the background research and finalize the report, is we invite Dave to one of our meetings and we can ask him questions directly and handle it that way too.
well, hopefully I can satisfy you all before it comes to that, but if needed, I'm sure he's just a font of knowledge, and he's very direct, and I really appreciate what he does. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Further questions for Member Johnson on communications? All right, moving forward to agenda item number 7, which is new business. The floor is now open with any motions regards to new business. All right, seeing none, then we will move forward to our next topic, which is unfinished business. The first document is the 2022 priorities that we had identified. In your agenda packet, it's page number, well, actually, it's got 2 different versions here. So it's page number 5. And I categorized it into 3 different areas. One's in progress, because we're already working on them. Another one is to prioritize. I've just listed everything that we decided we wanted to talk about in no priority order, and that's something that I want to address today. And then other, meaning there were things that we said we wanted to do, but it really wasn't a priority. It was just more like a task. So I'll review those things right now. Do you want me to share my screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about? Okay, I'll share my screen. Now, if I can remember how to do it. Share screen. There we go. All right. Can you see the screen? Great. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So in progress, we're working on, tree and shrub codes, responding to city council questions from our presentation, and then also moving forward with a recommendation on programs that the city should consider to help residents. The second thing is the dangerous dog code. We've had that on our agenda for the past couple of meetings. We've just never been able to get to it. And then, we had started that a couple of years ago. And I think, our plan was to start working on that after we finish the tree portion. To prioritize, there are 7 items. One is committee guidelines for communication within the community. And really specifically, that's relating to social media and questions that occur on Nextdoor, Instagram, or Twitter relating to city code. And I mean, there continues to be so many questions that come up in it. I bite my tongue because I really want to respond, but I think we need to have a process in place to make sure that we are responding appropriately when those questions come up. Animal licensing, that is if the city does move forward with requiring that. So that's kind of an if. If we do go that direction, then we recognize that there will be some code changes that will be needed due to that. There was a comment on updating our alley and weeds ordinance, then reviewing trash removal after the recommendations come from the single trash hauler committee. The number 7 was Title 15 on the maximum number of vehicles per household, a voucher program for illegal dumping, and then scooters. The fact that our code really doesn't address, the use of scooters in the city. Going into other, these are just things that we wanted to do. We know that we need to review the bylaws. We're supposed to do that every year. We decided to do that in March of this coming year. We also need to elect a chair and a vice chair in March. And then we wanted to circle back with the city attorney on finishing the wording changes for animals and fowl, dogs and cats, and making sure it was consistent. We had identified it but they were supposed to go through and get that done. And we said that we would just contact her and ask the question. And then lastly, the 2022 media plan. So what I would like to hear from everybody is in the prioritize category, what should we be working on next? Colleen, you have your hand raised? We can't hear you.
Okay, with the screen up, I couldn't get to unmuting myself. Since we don't know if animal licensing is going to happen, I would put that at the bottom. And number 6, I would put that at the bottom. And the voucher program has nothing to do with us. That's in the works. So I would strike that. And scooters, I'm not sure we have the authority to deal with vehicles. We do have some parking, but only what is in Title 15.
So there was a council request that came through on scooters, and the attorney for the city actually responded to that. I haven't read it yet. I just found it when we were in the meeting earlier today, but there are some portions of code that do cover it. So we're not going to go through that, but I'm happy to make that available as we move forward. And I lost my place here. Sorry.
Well, I would definitely put it at the bottom unless we are directed to address the issue, because it's not one of our, it's not one of the things we're allowed to address as far as our enabling legislation is concerned.
I know that we talked about this before, but we had identified, the committee had identified that that was something that we did want to address because there's no rules, you know, what we talked about was there doesn't appear to be any rules for the use of scooters. I'm happy to put it down at the bottom, but I do think that there might be code enforcement issues there, especially with regards to parking.
Well, I would suggest then we request of council if they want us to address it.
Okay. Anybody else? David, your code manager Lewis, you had your hand.
I did. I just wanted to give you an update regarding the voucher program that has been completed, and we do have that in place.
For illegal dumping?
Yes, it's a small reimbursement program up to $50 per household per calendar year for reimbursement for illegal dumping.
Good work.
I did not provide that update. We're finalizing just a few small little minor changes to the processes, but yes, we are inspecting, taking a report, and providing the documentation for the vouchers where they can go to the city and prove that an extra charge was added to them for a specific item that would have been illegally dumped and reported to the police department, and then they would receive a check for $50.
Got it. All right, so I'm going to move these to the shoot. This is Coen suggested move animal licensing to the bottom. Sorry. The process for trash removal after recommendation from the trash committee, since we don't know when that's going to be. And then scooters, we may not, we're not sure of that, but we're still going to leave it on our radar. So that leaves three.
One other thing, Julie, one other thing, I would like to move up to one of the top priorities, maybe third, is the Title VII issue, because that is a primary responsibility of ours, is animals and animal welfare.
So when we talked about that last time, it's not that we need to do anything. We had already identified those changes needed to be made, and we decided all we needed to do was contact the city attorney and talk to her about where they are with that. So that's why I put it down in other, because it's not really a committee action. It's an individual, probably me, that will call her and ask where we stand on those changes.
Well, I think we should ask for certain changes, particularly with the definitions and with other animals in the prohibition. I think we need to discuss it.
So again, what we have on number 11 for Title 17 is Title 7 was to finish the changes that we had identified for animal impoundment. And if there is additional changes that you're recommending that we make, then that needs to be prioritized like everything else.
That's what I said.
So we've not talked about that. So
Well, we have before, yeah, it just never got, it was put on the back burner because of the one language change to domesticated animals. We didn't, we chose not to go forward with anything else. And I
why-
think we should.
I can give you an update on that.
Dave, please go ahead.
So when you all submitted your recommendations and council made those changes, it's already triggered a comprehensive review from the city attorney's office regarding the Title VII. So that's already with them. So that's currently in review as of right now.
Colleen, can you be more specific about further changes to the code in Title VII that needs to be made that we haven't already addressed?
Yeah, all the definitions are now passé, and there is an issue now by the way the domestic animal definition is written, that it's confusing on the animals in general that prohibit livestock.
Again, I see that as a question to the attorney versus an action by the committee. Does anybody else care to weigh in?
I can. I guess I would ask this body, outside of the definitions and what the city attorney's office is looking at, I can say I don't see a problem. Would this board be creating something that doesn't exist? And what would be the purpose, or what would serve the purpose of changing that if there's no urgency, no concern, no immediate, speaking as the person who's a subject matter expert and the person that is working in this, I guess I would ask, why would those changes be made if we have no conflict or concern?
Okay. And my comment is that we know that the city attorney is working on that section, so I don't want to waste any more time, or I don't want to spend any more time on this committee until we know what those changes are. And the definitions, that was part of our recommendation. We can ask the question where those stand. And that's why I've kept it on this list, but it's not going to be a priority. So we really just have 3 items left to prioritize. Committee guidelines, updating alley and weeds ordinance, and then the maximum number of vehicles per household. I'm okay with leaving it as is because, you know, the first 2 items, trees and dangerous dog codes, I mean, by the time we finish those 2, we may have a different, you know, thinking on what we should be working on next. Does anybody have a problem with us leaving it the way it is right now? And again, to me, priorities are good the day you set them, and it's something that we constantly look at and adjust to as, you know, the needs of the community and city council direction changes, we adjust to. So it's not set in stone, it's just what we start the year out with. Dave, your hand is raised.
I just wanted to give a caution to this committee regarding number 5, the Title 15. That was a citizen initiative that was voted on, and whether or not some interpretations was done, the court has already made some specific rulings in regards to that, and those rulings have not been challenged in higher courts. So making changes or making those recommendations, you just understand you would have to go back through a citizen initiated vote to make a change to that particular situation.
The person that headed that committee is my neighbor 2 doors down. Colleen, your hand's raised.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I had the dubious honor of dealing with this issue, and the citizen initiative was specific not to limit to 1. And so therefore, it never got changed properly. If it were changed, it should have no number next to it. So, you know, if it's going to be in conformance with the citizen initiative, it was not in conformance with the citizen initiative. In fact, the citizen initiative was misapplied all the way through the vehicle code. They took out half of the model transportation code and didn't address the issues that were specific to the citizen initiative, which was there should be no limitation to 2 vehicles per household of any kind.
Okay.
So
Again, we're not discussing this right now. We're just deciding what we're going to be addressing next. And my proposal is, we know what we're already working on, trees and dangerous dog code. We have a couple of things that we need to do down here, which are going to be on our agenda at the first of the year. When we get those things done, these are the things that we're going to be looking at talking about. And at that time, I would recommend we go through and reprioritize, because a lot of time will have passed and other things may have come up. So if your guys are okay with that, I'm going to leave it as is, unless anyone has any strong feelings about 3, 4, and 5 being reordered. All right, otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and enter this into our documents for what we'll be working on in 2022. And plus, we have a new chair and co-chair that are going to be coming on board, and they may want to revise these too. So again, it's not set in stone. It's what we're going to start the year out with, and we'll revisit it. Okay. All right. Second to our agenda for unfinished business is just the EAB follow-up. There were, we made a lot of assignments at our last meeting, and we decided that we would have these tasks completed and ready to review at our February meeting. But I wanted to put it on our agenda today in case anybody had any questions or follow-up issues that they wanted to address as they're working on these. I know, Colleen, you and Carson are working, and I've started looking at tree shrub authority, in other cities, and I know Member Johnson has already talked with Dave Lee, but if you guys don't have any follow-up questions, then we don't need to spend any time on it. I just wanted to make sure if you guys had any questions, we set aside time today to work on it. Colleen, your hand is raised.
yeah, I do have a question. As I mentioned before, I thought that maybe some things should be included in this matrix, like whether things are subsidized, whether the trees are, any trees are prohibited, what's the tree city status, are they home rule, as well as any programs and the authority. So as I'm going through it, I'm determining whether or not there is an urban forestry department for the cities I'm looking at. Do we want to talk about which cities we want to look at? How many do we want to look at? And whether the matrix should include authority and subsidies and other things.
Well, your first question was in terms of the cities that you guys look at. With the research that we did, I think we had 5 or 6 cities. Do you recall?
I don't recall, and things have changed since then. And I'm thinking that the cities that are most affected right now are the ones that we should probably look at. Longmont, Westminster, Arvada, and of course Boulder, since they're the most active. But as far as the matrix goes, I would like to include everything there, whether there's an authority, whether they're doing any subsidies, how they are handling the tree city, and what their status is. Like Boulder is tree city of the world, and it's one of the very, very few. Arvada has the Gold Leaf Award, and what they're doing to expand their programs, or if they are, and maybe even how many public trees that are, that they're dealing with. I just wanted to know what we do, you know. I've already got this information for 2 cities. Do we want to do it for other cities that are in the path of this, that are infested? Like Westminster, Longmont, maybe even Fort Collins. I don't think we did any of those.
We
Maybe
did. I have it up here. We did Longmont, Westminster, Boulder, Denver, and Lafayette.
Okay, so you want to limit it to those, including Arvada and Boulder?
Well, I think what I would like is, I mean, I know you verbally said what you're looking at, and then in terms of what criteria you're comparing each city on, it would be helpful just to see the list.
Okay, do you want me to email you the list I've come up with, and I'll copy Carson, and then you decide?
Why don't you and Carson work on it and then send it to me, and we can look at it at our next meeting, but don't let that hold you up on your progress.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Carson? Cool. All right. Okay. Am I still sharing my desktop? I'm not.
No.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the last piece that we were working on for EAB was we identified programs and resolutions that the city should city should consider to help residents moving forward. And obviously this is going to tie into the research that Carson and Colleen are doing on what other cities are doing. Once again, I'm going to share my document so we can all look at the same thing. And I once again, I kind of categorized them because as I started to summarize from our last meeting, they kind of fell into groups. The first group was financial assistance and incentives. One was to incentivize residents to proactively treat or remove undesirable trees with either a voucher program, financial support to cut down a tree, the ability to safely dispose, although that sounds like that's now been addressed with the voucher program that is in the budget for this year. Establish a budget and fund to assist homeowners with, you know, disposal again, and then a program to provide desirable trees at a low cost. Again, that would be kind of like the Arbor Day Foundation tree sale that Monica talked about earlier. And then the second thing under financial assistance and incentives was arborist services. Maybe the city could contract with a group of arborists to provide low-cost removal services or identification, and then also do the same thing with licensed pesticide certified tree service companies to provide low-cost treatment. And the next category would be things that could be done to maintain the tree canopy. One is to expand the Arbor Day sale and to help residents replace trees. Assign authority within parks and recs to recommend programs and provide expertise resources to property owners. And it kind of sounds like we're already moving in that direction with the hiring of a second arborist. And then lastly was community information is to arm code enforcement with some information on EAB so that if they're asked that they can hand that out. And the comment was Dave Lee might already be working with communications, but we don't know that yet. So I just kept it on here. How does that look for everybody, especially with respect to everything we've talked about for the past year and a half? Robert, your hand's raised.
Yeah, I just had a question on the arborist services. It says contact with group of Inglewood arborists.
Contract with
Yeah, but how many are in Inglewood, and can't it be outside? Can't they be outside of Inglewood?
So the code, the way it's written right now, is that residents, if they work with an arborist, it has to be on the approved list of arborists It's on the city website. Now, whether
Right.
or not we enforce it, that's another issue. But we were thinking that maybe if we worked with Inglewood-based businesses, that they would be more likely to help us with this issue, and that we might be able to offer them, like, free advertising on the website or in the newsletter, as compensation for, getting lower negotiated rates.
I guess, have we identified how many there are in Inglewood?
I think I don't know. I know the list is out there on the website. I know, Colleen, didn't you look at that at one point? Do you recall how many were Inglewood-based businesses?
There were about 5, and I've learned since then that even though they aren't officially licensed specifically, that Inglewood automatically licenses anybody that is licensed in Denver or Lakewood. So, and they limit the idea of arborist to those that have the state certification for pesticide application. They don't
I
even
guess-
have to.
Sorry, I guess my point was more, shouldn't it be contact with group of Inglewood recommended arborists as opposed to Inglewood arborists? That, I think that was,
That's fine. And again, it was an idea.
But
Uh,
Carson might have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Carson,
I
your
was
hand's
just going to
raised.
agree with Member Watson and maybe make it with group of Inglewood qualified arborists, then it's not necessarily tied to where their business is based, but that they're, on the list of qualified providers within Inglewood. Because I
Right.
think from a citizen perspective, getting the deal regardless of who it's from is what really matters.
Right.
And we were brainstorming, and maybe I should have taken that out of there, but I mean, it was just one way that what we, the city could be, possibly sell the idea and secure, lower rates. But the next step would, these proposals or resolutions would go, just like we did before, it would be in an email to Rita to take to the city council. And I recommend that we send this with the questions or our answers to the questions that they had. So are there any further comments to what we're looking at here? Anything anybody objects to? I saw Carson do a thumbs up. Anybody else? Got a thumbs up from Robert. Colleen, you've got your hand raised?
Yeah, I think it's fine the way it is, but I would like a little more emphasis on the importance of the tree canopy. That's something that Arvada and I'm sure other cities have done. Arvada and Boulder are very vocal about how it lowers the temperature, provides conservation of water, cleans the air, and how important the tree canopy is for those environmental ideas. And I can provide you with what they say. That, which suggests that they make a bigger deal out of our tree canopy than is currently being done with Inglewood.
So we need something a little more specific. And again, it's in relation to EAB. So.
Well, that is the relationship, since EAB is going to take out so many of the trees, a good 20% in Boulder, that it just emphasizes the importance of planting and saving trees that are significant or historical or valuable.
Okay, so again, these are programs or resolutions, and I'm not hearing a program or a resolution there, but I do think, the fact that we recommended that an authority be established within the city, and the city council asked for examples of how that authority would look, might address what you're talking about. But please go ahead and forward to me what you're referring to, and we can see if we can add that. Otherwise, I'm going to put this to rest and leave it as is, with the exception of changing this the opening paragraph here to not just Inglewood arborists, but Inglewood approved or qualified arborists. And we'll move forward with that. And when we submit our documents, our response to City Council will include this. Okay, everybody? All right, I see a yes and a go. All right, thank you all very much for your patience, your ideas. This has been a lot of work, and we're wrapping it up, and it's kind of exciting. Let's see. The next thing on our agenda is topics for future meetings. So we can leave EAB on there, and Colleen and Carson, if you have a list of cities and a list of criteria that you're going to be comparing cities, if you want to share that with us in January, we can look at that and offer any further suggestions. I know that we need to look at bylaws. Monica, do you want to work on a communications calendar or editorial calendar, or do you think that's what the communications department's going to be doing?
I think we should have a meeting in January, try to set one up.
With communications?
Yep, and just get her done. I think last year was a great start, and they're, yeah. I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but that's what I think. They're doing a great job turning the ship around.
Okay. And then if we have time, we can also start talking about dangerous dog. We've tried to do that several times. Any further topics? All right. And then in terms of scheduling our next meeting, can't believe we're talking about January. It would be January 19th. That okay with everyone? All right. Last on the agenda is committee members' choice. Does anyone have anything that they would like to bring up that we haven't already addressed? Or just a nice thing to say? Monica?
I would just like to say it's nice to know that Dave and his team and our the other police are out keeping our neighborhoods and pets and property safe on days like today. It's really nice to know. It's very comforting. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Carson? Oh, sorry, I can't see your hand against the white.
I was just gonna say, last time you asked about info on the trash thing. So in regard to where that stands, we actually just had a meeting last night. We have another one coming up. What our committee did is we put a huge amount of effort into defining an RFP based on what our understanding of what citizens wanted is, and that was put out, and only 2 companies responded, Waste Management and Republic. Neither of them provided proposals that cover the requirements of the RFP. So, and they're different things that, like Republic is fine with doing all alley service for waste and recycling, and Waste Management is it's very ambiguously trying to push against that. Republic is trying to not allow opt-out at all. So there's problems with both of them, and we're still evaluating the proposals. We don't know what's going to end up coming out of our committee as a recommendation to City Council. So that's where that stands.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Oh, and I was just trying to find the schedule. I applied to be on this other committee that's it's a Elevate Inglewood, and it's a series of meetings, and some of this I don't even know if I'm going to be if I'm going to get onto it. They haven't announce who is on it or not, but there are, if I do get on it, there are some meetings that conflict with ours, including January 19th. So, I don't know if, that is our regular, there's, I think of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, of the 8 meetings, if I do get into it, there's 3 of them that conflict with our regular meetings. I would really like to participate in it. I don't know if that's gonna disqualify me, or if there is any chance that we'd be able to meet on a different night. I mean, obviously that's complicated because we have a whole committee here that's used to our meeting night. So I don't know if that's above and beyond even the consideration, but if there is a possibility for me to be able to do both, I would appreciate if that would be possible. It's the January 19th, February 16th, and March 16th dates that would be, if I do get onto that committee, could we possibly meet on a different night? And so I don't know.
Why don't we just decide to move it now? And that way it's not a question. I don't have a problem with moving it to the 20th at all. Does anyone else have a problem with that? And that way you can do both. All right, let's do it for the 20th. Done and done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that concludes our December 15th meeting. And I guess at this point, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I hope you all have a wonderful, peaceful, healthy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
You too.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Winter solstice.